Alright guys, welcome back to Wild Outdoor Living. So today I'm going to be showing you guys 5 flat pedal shoes that I've tested. These aren't necessarily the top 5 flat pedal shoes in this category. These are just 5 that I've actually tested personally, and I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best in the context of gravel and gravel bike packing type uses. So most of your videos are going to focus on, in fact, most of my videos on flat pedal shoes are going to focus on, mountain biking and how much grip they have and what their protection is like. But today we're going to be focusing on how well do they pedal, how comfortable they are after a long period of time, what is their hikeability like, durability, that sort of thing, because that's going to matter when you go out and use them for gravel racing or for gravel centric bike packing trips, which is something I'm planning on doing this spring. I'm planning on using some flat pedal shoes, and so I've been testing them out for myself personally to see which ones I'm going to take, and that's where this list is coming from. So the shoes we're looking at in no particular order are the Fiveten Freerider Classics, the Fiveten Slueth, as well as the Fiveten Slueth DLX. I'm kind of combining those two since they're essentially the same shoe. We're looking at the Bontrager Flatline flat pedal shoes. We're looking at the Liat DBX 3.0 flat pedal shoes in the signature colorway. And we're also looking at a pair of Altra Torin 4s that I think have some great potential as well. So before we get into the list, what am I looking for and what should maybe you be looking for in a flat pedal shoe that you want to use for long distance type of stuff? Not super technical, but just tons of miles, tons of pedaling. What features are you going to look for? So for me personally, I want a sole that is, number one, it's got to be flat. It doesn't have to be a cycling branded shoe. That's why the Ultra is in here, but it must be flat front to back, so it can sit properly on the pedal. I don't want a notch in between like you get on a lot of boots. Of course, some people are fine dealing with that, but for me, that just throws me off. So I want an actual flat sole. And then I want a sole that is supportive enough to keep my feet from flexing around the pedal and causing fatigue over time. For hours and hours on the bike, riding gravel roads and washboards and stuff, I want some good protection underfoot. I also want the shoe to be fairly lightweight. I don't need a ton of, rock protection and stuff like that. It's just not super necessary. So I want it to be lightweight-ish, but I do want it to be very durable because it does need to last a long time if you're going to be using it in this sort of way. And it needs to dry somewhat quickly. And if it does get wet, it needs to keep working for me. So those are the things that I look for in a flat pedal shoe for gravel. For mountain biking, of course, I'm looking for a lot more protection. I've got a bigger emphasis on grip. With the gravel scene, it needs to have adequate grip, and I'm okay with the fact that some shoes are going to work on some pedals and some aren't. As long as I know up front, but it needs to have adequate grip. It can't be a super slippery shoe. With that in mind, let's get into the list. Coming in at number 5 is the Liat, and these are kind of my main trail shoes, especially this last summer. I really loved these for, being in Oregon and all the down trees that are on the sides of the trails. These protected my feet really, really well. They actually do dry quite fast, but keep in mind, this is an all mountain shoe. These are meant to be beefy. These are beefier than any other shoe here. So with that in mind, you do have a raised section on the ankle, for ankle protection. You have great padding, and actually, even with all this padding, it does dry well. It is fairly water resistant because of the outer material that they used. It's got great underfoot protection. This is the stiffest sole here by far, and they come up with grip basically with a pattern on the bottom of the shoe rather than a rubber compound like Fiveten does. So they basically want the pins to lock into this, and it works quite well. This shoe is quite wide in the forefoot, so it's going to give you great room to splay out. That's another thing I'm looking for in a shoe here is just all-day comfort. So this one's going to give you lots of wiggle room. But as a result, if you've got a bigger foot, you're going to need a bigger pedal for this. It doesn't work very well on chesters. It feels kind of squirrely. And it's really hard to tell where the pedal is underneath your foot because there is so much protection. So that's kind of the downside for an all-day pedaler. And then this ankle protection, which is great, for protection, doesn't do so great for all-day pedaling. This does tend to rub when I walk around in this at work. Sometimes I'll wear this 8 hours a day, especially since I've been testing it out. And I do get some irritation from this. So that's something to keep in mind. But overall, great shoe. This is a great shoe if you're in a cold weather climate. This is absolutely my favorite shoe on my fat bike. So if you don't need a fat biking boot, but you want a shoe, this is a really good choice. This is also a good choice if you have wide feet in general. And so yeah, great shoe, but it's coming at number 5 on the list. Coming in at number 4 is the Fiveten Freerider Classic. This is the regular Freerider, depending on how you want to call it. This is going to make a lot of people mad, I'm sorry. This is one of my favorite shoes of all time. It's got one of the best pedal feels of this group. It has the absolute grippiest sole in this lineup, and it's one of the grippiest soles you'll find anywhere. The 510 rubber, especially on these shoes, is very, very sticky, and we'll get more into that as we get to the Sleuth. The problem with this shoe, even though it's got great pedal feel, it's actually a pretty comfortable shoe. It's really comfortable to walk in as well. If this is what you've got, this is going to be a great choice. The problem with it, though, is the way it fits is that they've used a lot of padding. And so it's not super refined padding. And so when it's dry, it works well, but when it gets wet, the fit tends to feel really sloppy and the shoe gets really stretchy, and then it takes like eons to dry. This is the longest drying shoe of any shoe here. And that could be a problem on a multi-day tour for sure. Durability wise, you know, it's going to get you through the tour. I definitely have no doubt about that. But if you're going to do a really long tour, this could start to be a problem, because this rubber sole is going to break down and it's going to wear holes in it. Especially if you're going to use it for like multiple trips year after year. You're going to go through these shoes probably in 6 months to a year. You could keep going longer. That's the nice things. They do tend to be workable, but their actual fit and function tends to degrade really rapidly, and they're almost unrecognizable. My older Freeriders look almost nothing like these, and these look quite a bit different than they did when they were new. So you're going to see a lot of shoe breakdown with this. And so as a result, it sits in number 4 because I feel like there's some better options. Now, depending on where you're riding and your riding style, this could easily come in at number 1. This, I think, is the lightest shoe here. This is the Altra Torin 4. This is a running shoe, so that's something you have to know right off the bat. This does not have a water-resistant upper, but because of the material it's made of, it does dry fairly quickly. And it's probably going to be the best, you know, in hot weather climates, and especially if you're going to have to be doing a lot of hike-a-bike in the dry. I mean, this is by far the most comfortable shoe to walk in. It's got a nice wide forefoot, and so it gives you lots of room to splay. It does have a pretty good stack height on this because this is one of their cushier shoes, and so your support on the pedal is going to be pretty decent. The one big drawback to this shoe is the fact that it's not going to work well on every pedal. So on a kind of neutral grip level pedal like a Race Face Chester, which of course is really popular, the Torrent is just going to slip forward a little bit, I noticed. And so I kept having to readjust my foot. On a really grippy pedal, and especially a wider pedal, because again, we have a big toe box here, it's going to work great, but it's not going to work on every pedal. And that's the biggest reason why I put it in number 3. This is the Fiveten Slueth, and this particular one is the DLX version. So the big difference between the DLX and the standard Sleuth is the upper. This upper on the DLX has more of a water resistant material to it. It has some nicer features just all around, but it almost is all in the upper. The sole seems to be exactly the same. This shoe, I think, has the best pedal feel. You're gonna have the best feedback out of the pedals than you will with any shoe here. It is fairly stiff and supportive when new, but again, these DLXs are new. But let's jump to the regular Sleuth, and I will show you kind of what happens after a year of use. So this is the regular Sleuth. These I've been wearing for about a year, and actually they've held up pretty well. The upper's in great shape. These are my daily shoes. The nice thing about the Sleuth is it's great as a casual shoe. So if you want a casual look, but you still want an actual flat sole on there, but you want it to feel and look casual, the Sleuth is going to be your go-to. It's cut fairly low, so you don't have as much weather protection as some of the others. This particular one, being the regular, is just canvas, so it's going to dry out fairly quickly, but it's also going to let water in really fast. So that could be a problem. The sole on this shoe is harder than it is on the Freerider Classic, so it's not as sticky, but still really grippy, and it lasts longer. But this shoe has become super soft, and it's so comfortable to walk around in. But on the bike, I'm getting flex back and forth. I can really feel like I'm not getting as much support as I want. It just doesn't feel as comfortable on a long ride as I would like. You can also feel, if you push in this area, that the rubber part of the sole is separating from the rest of whatever is behind it. So definitely getting some breakdown with this. Of course, you're going to get breakdown with any shoe, but if you're investing in a shoe to put a lot of miles in, you're probably going to go through this pretty fast. So that's why it's in the number 2 spot. But otherwise, the design, everything you need is here, and it's a fairly durable package. So it's honestly, it was going to be number 1 and up until like a week ago. And it got pushed out of number 1 as I did some back-to-back-to-back testing and kind of started to realize some things about the number 1 shoe. So yeah, love this thing. It's super comfortable. It's based on the Adidas Samba, and so you guys may be familiar with that one. You could actually bike pack in that shoe as well. The only real difference is they've basically given this the 510 treatment, 510 sole, a little bit different upper, but it's the same last. So if you like the Adidas Samba, you're probably going to like the Sleuth. It doesn't have a very wide toe box. It fits great on all pedals, but the toe box breaks in quite well, opens up really well. The toe box is quite tall, and so you have lots of wiggle room. I don't feel any sort of compression or issues in my forefoot like I do with a lot of other shoes, to be honest. I'm still breaking in the DLX. That's a different upper, but I'm feeling like it's going to be similar. So yeah, depending on where you're going, this could be a great choice. All right, and in number 1, we have the Bontrager Flatline. So this is Trek's actually first flat pedal shoe. They've made some casual shoes in the past, but this is the first one that's got that kind of skate style look to it. And it's actually pretty cool. I bought it because I'd worn out my original pair of Freeriders and ended up getting another pair of Freeriders after it because when I originally bought it, I was looking for a grippy, aggressive mountain bike shoe. And this one falls short a little bit in that. But the cool thing is it does actually pretty well in this particular category for a few reasons. So this is the original Flatline. This is when they first released it. This was the first colorway. They've never really said they've released a version 2, but as I'm going to explain in a minute, they've definitely made a couple of changes to improve it. One of the reasons I didn't like it at first was because it's not as like stuck to the pedal as the Freerider Classics, especially when you're on a race face Chester that's a little bit convex. You put this on a concave pedal or a flat pedal with really aggressive pins, and you're going to have excellent grip. I've been really surprised as I've gotten different pedals and kind of tested back to back. These do awesome. The other reason I didn't love these after a while was partly because I ended up with the wrong size. These fit me perfectly, but a little bit too perfectly. And the upper on this original one didn't retain my foot quite well enough, so I'd slide forward and back. And it felt like the upper just didn't do a great job at keeping my foot in place. Bontrager has made a couple of changes to fix that. But the big thing on this is the sole. So it uses a Vibram rubber outsole. The sole itself is not so wide that it's not going to fit on every pedal. I just did a 45-mile Zwift ride in these on race face Chesters, and they worked great. The sole itself has some pretty good insulating properties or impact resistant properties, and it's also fairly durable. I haven't had a lot of breakdown with this one. This one, you know, I didn't love it, but I did put quite a bit of miles on it, and it's still really stiff. It's still nice and supportive, and I still enjoy pedaling on it. But of course, like I said, it was a little bit too small, and so it didn't work on all my rides. So recently, I just bought another pair. Because while I was doing back-to-back testing, I realized that the Bontrager really, for me and my trip, is going to be the best shoe. It's got the water-resistant upper, so if you're going to get splashed and stuff, it's going to drain off. It dries actually really fast. And then that Vibram outsole is tough. It's going to stand up. I'm not going to feel like my foot is like bending over the pedal. And that's just great for all-day comfort. So this is the sole. And again, you know, Vibram outsole. Vibram makes some great tough outsoles. It's not as sticky as the 510s, but again, some people are going to like that because it's a little bit looser. A couple of changes they've kind of secretly made since they very first originally released that shoe. One of the shoes that I really, really love is Bontrager Rally, and that's a clipless pedal version basically of this shoe. If you look at them side to side, you'll notice the uppers are almost identical. But when I got the Rally, I noticed the tongue was a little bit thicker, and of course it has the lace strap as well. And so I felt like foot retention was greatly increased just because of a little bit of changes they'd made to the tongue. And what's cool is they've made it here too. One of my other gripes about the original was this gnar guard, which did absolutely nothing. It was super soft. This new one is actually pretty stiff, much more similar to my Rally. And so while these shoes are new, I've put enough miles on my Rally to know that this doesn't break down right away. So this is pretty nice. It mostly does protect the shoe, but it's going to protect your foot a lot better than the old one did. And if you look really closely, you'll notice the Nar guard is a different texture than before. So that kind of reinforces the fact that they did make some changes. They also made some changes to the lace holes. They took out the metal guides, which could cut down on durability a little bit. But part of the reason my foot would slide around is because the laces wouldn't really stay in place as well as I'd want them to. And so this resists those laces moving, gives it a little bit more friction. And on other shoes, I haven't had an issue with these in terms of durability. So all in all, this one, the Bontrager Flatline, is built the most like a cycling shoe. And if you're used to clipless shoes, you know that they actually really last a long time. Part of the problem with our flat pedal shoe industry in general is these shoes just absolutely do not last. Their durability is unbelievably bad in comparison to a clipless shoe. It kind of has to be so you can get some grip on the pedal. You have to soften things up. But this one is much better overall, I think, than some of the other offerings, especially in key areas. But for gravel and bike packing and long days in the saddle, this one is going to be my favorite. All right, so that was pretty long-winded, but if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments section down below. Definitely please feel free to subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot of content coming up. I'm trying to stay on top of things this year, as I kind of said last year, but it's a constant thing we're trying to work on, trying to bring you guys good videos, and we hope you enjoy them.